All righty, here we are. We're going to be starting tonight on page 131. And get to page 131. And then I want you to, you can keep a finger there and go back to page 124. In this section, this last section, he is looking at the Enneagram as an archetype, and so as an archetypal symbol. And he made the distinction between the traditional symbol for the Enneagram and then his newer symbol, which is three equilateral triangles just offset enough to create that nine-pointed star, okay? And so in a triangle of triangles on page 131, he says each triangle symbolizes different aspects of a certain stage of the drama of humanity's spiritual quest. All three triangles together portray how the stages themselves form a directional unity throughout the entire quest. Almost sounds like word salad, doesn't it? I mean, that's a lot of density. But let's go back to page 124 and take a look at figure 4 there, just so we can remind ourselves what is actually going on. Because what he is positing is that the 9 enneatypes are stemming from the intersection of these three triangles, creating 9 points that each give one of the centers of experience and one of the three types of energy. And it's those 9 possibilities, 9 different combinations. When you have 3 centers of experience and 3 types of energy, you have 9 different possible combinations. Each point is one of those combinations. And so each point also has a certain characteristic because of the combination of the center of type of experience and the type of energy. So when you look at this, you can see that the body center, or all the 3 types of experience, centers of experience, span 3 types. So at the top, 8, 9, and 1 is body, 2, 3, and 4 is heart, 5, 6, and 7 is mind, the mental types. And so you see how that plays around the circle of the Enneagram. Then you see that the yin, the yang, and the reconciling energies, they also have a pattern. So if you start 9 and work clockwise, you have one type and then a pair of types, one type, a pair of types, one type, and a pair of types. So you start with the yin energy of type 9, and then that moves to the reconciling energy of types 1 and 2. Then you move to the yang energy of type 3, and then the pair of 4 and 5 of the yin types. And then you go to reconciling, and then you have the final pair of yang. And so there is a pattern there. One, and then directly opposite would be the pair of those types. And so as that runs around the enneatype, we see how each one of these is going to be a separate pair. So then if you flip one page and go to page 127, at the bottom, then you see how this plays out in terms of the 3 triangles being overlaid on top of one another. So the central triangle is the one that is standing upright with 9 at the top and 3 and 6 at the 2 bottom vertices. And so that central triangle, 9, 3, and 6, you see that 9 is right in the center of the 3 body types that span between 1 and 8. It's a yin type. And then you move down the line to 3, that's right in the center of the heart group of 2, 3, and 4, and it's a yang type. Move straight across to 6, that's right in the center of the mind span from 5 to 7, and it's a reconciling type. Then if you move one click to type 1, and then you draw the triangle that way, from 1 to 4 to 7, and then back to 1, then you see that 1 is a body type, and it's reconciling. 4 is a yin energy and a heart type. And then over 7, you got a yang energy and a mind type. Drop one more down to 2 and take a look at the triangle from 2 to 5 to 8. And you got 2 as a heart experience type. Also, it is reconciling. Over to 5, you have mind and yin, and then 8, you have yang and 8. So these are the 3 triangles. So the triangle of triangles refers to these 3 all just being tweaked around to form this star, but all creating the vertices that are going to give us the 9 possible combinations of 3 energy types and 3 centers of experience. Just to get us oriented into what he's talking about, because he's not going to give us any more figures as he talks about these 3 triangles. Making sense? Okay? Kind of have a 30,000 foot roadmap view. Any questions or comments? All right, let's dig in. The first triangle, that first one we talked about, the 9, the 3, and the 6, he's going to call this the Earth triangle. So I think of the triangle formed by types 9, 6, and 3 as the Earth triangle. In Chinese cosmology, Earth Qi is another designation for Jing, or vital quintessence. Jing is life force in the process of moving from the unmanifest world to the manifest world. Okay, y'all familiar with the word manifest? It means to make something clearly seen, make it visible, to make it real, I suppose, by extension. So it's moving from a world that is not being made to be seen to one that is. So from the unseen world to the seen world. So Jing is life force in the process of moving from the unmanifest world to the manifest world. It is the energy that guides the basic process of incarnation. Incarnation being, right, spirit becoming clothed in physical properties, or as a living being in this case. Held primarily in the lower dantian, it governs our concrete physical and sexual existence. He's bringing in a lot of terms here that we haven't heard for about 50 pages. So just to remember that the dantian is kind of like chakras in the sense that they are energy centers. The lowest one that he's talking about here is located in the lower abdomen. The other is in the heart, and the other is in the head, usually right between the eyebrows or in the pineal gland area. And so he says that this Earth Qi, or Jing, this vital quintessence, is held primarily in the lower dantian. It governs our concrete physical and sexual existence. Earth triangle, therefore, seems the term best suited to convey how the 3 types of the central triangle portray a cosmic level of the drama of incarnation. Individuals of these 3 types share a certain deep preoccupation with the predicament of embodied existence. Types 9, 3, and 6 are archetypes of the 3 shocks of embodiment. That would be the infant who's being born into the world and gets shocked, right? And it is shocked into what? Well, shocked into the loss of wholeness first, that's the 9. The loss of emotional connection to source, that's the 3. And the loss of trust, that would be the 6. If we examine the 3 types in the counterclockwise direction, the triangle can be taken as a map of the developmental stages of the soul's fall from essence. I'm referring, of course, to the infant's sequential discoveries that life as a body is uncomfortable, beginning with birth. Okay, so that would be the loss of wholeness. That it is moreover dangerous due to parental failure to protect, beginning with the first years of life. That would be the loss of emotional connection. And finally, that one's true nature is invisible to others, most characteristically in the 2nd and 3rd years of life, which would be a loss of trust. See what he's doing here? How he's saying, and we go counterclockwise. I don't know if that's clockwise to you with my screen split, but counterclockwise back through the numbers. It's going to take us backward in the disintegration from wholeness into this loss of emotional connection and then loss of trust. Next page. When read in the opposite direction, that would be clockwise now, however, the path of 9 to 3 to 6 to 9 again can be viewed as a description of the human spiritual journey. It begins with the soul's initial merger with essence, which is 9, continues with its individuation into a human ego or personality, that would be the 3, whose consciousness is gradually transformed into the awareness that is both human, individual, and embodiment of divine spirit, 6, and finally returns to merger with essence again, which is 9. The first direction, that be counterclockwise, describes what Sandra Maitri has called the logic of the soul as it unravels into egoic type. The second direction, clockwise, could be called the path of essence, for it nicely conveys the energetic movement of spiritual growth. Okay, there's a bunch there. Any thoughts, questions, concerns? Okay, let's continue on and see if we can get more confused. Hopefully this is clear what he's trying to say. He says, now on top of all of that, there's more. We can also approach the spiritual meaning. The central triangle of types in another manner. The three holy ideas of the Enneagram central triangle of love, hope, and faith, the three so-called theological virtues of Christianity, stand to one another in the following way. Love is the universal acceptance of all being just as it is. Hope is a creative wave of its natural unfolding. And faith is the abiding trust that these two are in complete harmony with each other. So let's go back to page 57 for a second, just so we can remember what this looks like. So this is the table 2 is a table of the type, the holy ideas, and the virtue. So 9 is love, right? And 3, hope, law, harmony, and hope. And then 6, strength and faith. So he's saying faith, or love, hope, and faith. Those 3 that Paul talks about are also the 3 ideals of Christian theology. So he's going to go through all of these, and they will all line up with the holy ideas of these 9 types.
So I didn't have that. I wasn't able to unmute, but back on page 131, the Earth triangle. So does it matter what type you are, whether you're a 9, 3, or a 6? You're all part of the Earth. And then I guess I'm not really understanding the counterclockwise versus the clockwise. Like, do these all 3 types start out the same counterclockwise way and then the clockwise way?
I'm glad you asked that, because if you're confused, probably a lot of us are. So go back to page 127. So now we're looking at figure 11, right? So this is all 3 triangle of triangles, played out in the Enneagram symbol. So if you look at the central triangle from 9 to 3 to 6, he's saying if you start at 9 and then go counterclockwise to 6 and then to 3 and back to 9, that is showing the devolution, that is showing the distortion and the disintegration of the wholeness, going through a lack of trust and so on and so forth. And then going the other direction forward, 9 to 3 to 6, is showing us how we're going forward. See how that's working?
So whether you're starting out as a 3, if you start out in the distortion, if you start out as a 3, or you start out as a 9, or you start out as a 6, you're still going to feel this lack of trust.
Well, he is now treating the Enneagram as an archetype. So it's not relating to individuals as much as it's relating really to all of us. We're going to take each of the 3 triangles in order here in this chapter. And he's going to say, okay, the first triangle is the Earth triangle. The second triangle is the human triangle. The third triangle is the heaven triangle. Each triangle is looking at a different level of human growth of consciousness. So he's not looking at so much as pertaining to individuals anymore as pertaining to all of us. And it's not so much as starting out as a 3. He's going to start at a particular number And then he's going to go forward and backward. He's going to go counterclockwise as a thing unravels. He's going to go clockwise as it brings us back to wholeness again. And he's showing how each one of these types in a symbolic way is a map of the human growth of consciousness and spirituality. The whole Enneagram he is positing as a map for us to spiritual growth. The bulk of the book has been looking at each individual type that we can look at from our own Enneatype and how we're going to grow. Now he's taking the thing as a whole and looking at it as a symbolic archetype. So we need to stop thinking so much individually, because right now the 9, the 3, and the 6 are applying to all of us.
Oh,
Right?
to
As
all of
each number is going to apply to all of us within this triangle of triangles. So now we're looking maybe from, you could say, from a 30,000-foot view, rather from the tree to the forest. Now we're looking at the forest to the trees. Does that help at all?
Yeah, and so the heaven, it's not going, which way is it going if it's not counterclockwise or clockwise?
There, you're going to be able to go both directions in each of the 3 triangles.
Okay.
So when we're going counterclockwise, we're devolving. When we're going the other way, we're evolving. Remember, this is all just symbolic, but it's showing the various stages and steps of all of our spiritual journey. Think about it. All of us as human beings, we have the same shape of the journey from birth to death. We have the same shape of our journey, from unripe to ripe. It's going to be different in detail, of course, for each one of us who are unique. And from our own individual enneatypes or personalities, we're going to have differences. But when you step back far enough, the shape of the journey is the same. And what he's saying is that we can understand the Enneagram archetypally as the shape of the overall journey that all of us are going to need to take, regardless of type.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other thoughts?
Well, I know you're saying it's archetypal and it's symbolic, but to say that if you're a 9 and then counterclockwise, you're evolving, but you go the other way, you're devolving to the 6 and evolving to the 3. To me, although it's symbolic and it's more a generalized view, it's showing if you move from 9 to 3, you're evolving, which is to me is getting better in the journey. But if you're devolving, going counter, you're getting worse. But I thought we are all, you know what I mean? A 6 has 6 qualities. How can it devolve? How can a 9 devolve and become worse if you become 6, if you merge the 2? You know what I'm saying? If you merge, which is the point of being healthy, you merge the good qualities of everyone, of every number.
Well, I think you're, Ellen, I think you're starting to take it personally. This isn't meant to be taken personally. This is saying when we are devolving, this is the journey. This is what it looks like. Let's read this. Let's read this again and see if it makes sense. Starting from where? On page 131. Right in the middle of that last paragraph, the Earth triangle, therefore, seems the term best suited to convey how the 3 types of the central triangle portray at a cosmic level. Okay, this is not individual. At a cosmic level, the drama of incarnation. What's the drama of incarnation? That's each of us, as what? Spiritual beings, if you want to think of it, spiritual beings having a human experience, being incarnated. We're moving into now a physical existence, which is going to have effects on us, which we've seen through the infant's experience and loss of connection. So this is the cosmic level drama of incarnation. Individuals of these 3 types share a certain deep preoccupation with the predicament of embodied existence. Types 9, 3, and 6 are archetypes of the 3 shocks of embodiment. The loss of wholeness, 9, loss of emotional connection to source, 3, and the loss of trust, 6. So those are the basic losses that each of those 3 types hold. But we all go through that at some level, right? It's more pronounced in those types. That's what cements their enneatype eventually as a distorted loss. But we all have the same process. And if we examine the three types in the counterclockwise direction of the triangle, can be taken as a map of the development stages of the soul's fall from essence. So this is moving into distortion, right? I am referring, of course, to the infant's sequential discoveries that life as a body is uncomfortable, beginning with birth, that it is moreover dangerous due to parental failure to protect, beginning with the first year of life. And finally, that one's true nature is invisible to others, most characteristically in the second and third years of life. So this isn't an individual 9 moving to 6 or a 6 moving to 3. This is just saying, as we devolve, as we move into those initial shocks, the wounding, the loss of wholeness, whatever number we are, it's going to look like that at the earth triangle. This is just dealing with us as aware creatures, conscious entities who now find themselves embodied, incarnated into a physical realm where these realities are going to take their toll on us. And what happens as that happens, what happens to us, the changes in us as that happens, is kind of outlined in this map if we go counterclockwise along those three. But if we go in the other direction, turn the page. When read in the opposite direction, however, the path of 9 to 3 to 6 to 9 again can be viewed as a description of the human spiritual journey. It begins with the soul's initial merger with essence, continues with this individuation into a human ego or personality, which is not bad. We have to have an ego, but if it's not healthy, then it's a problem. But if it's not a problem, it's not a problem, right? Whose consciousness is gradually transformed into the awareness that is both human, individual, and embodiment of divine spirit, which is where we're trying to get to, is a balance between the two, between the left brain and the right brain, right? Between human ego and sense of oneness and full connection. And finally, a return to merger with the essence again, which is type 9. So this isn't about individual types, devolving to a different type. It's just about saying, step back and take a look what these types represent about what is common to all of us as we are born into this world, are hurt and wounded and develop all our core beliefs and all those limiting, factors and programs in our life. And then how we finally, hopefully, successfully are able to purge them and move back to a healthy balance. Did that help? Not for Ellen.
No, my brain goes different places. It's all right. It's okay. Because I'm sorry, but you go from 9 to 3 and 6 clockwise and then to 9. You make a circle. You go from 9, 6, 3. You make a circle. You end up in the same place. But it's the journey. I get it. It's the journey. But why is one way worse than the other? Meaning, why is one devolving and then the other way is evolving?
No one said that.
Well, devolve and evolve are opposite.
They're just ways of going. One's clockwise, one's counterclockwise. There's no judgment involved.
But the judgment of devolving, the word itself, you devolve, is different from evolve. You evolve, you become better. You devolve, you become worse.
Well, we are. I mean, in one direction, he's saying that the direction is showing us how we move from the wholeness to the distortion of that loss of wholeness. And the other direction is rebuilding that. So, it's first and second half of life journeys. The first half of life journey, we are all about ego, all about identification with our accomplishments and our roles. Second half of life journey, we turn around, we move the other direction. We metanoia, we repent, we change directions. And now we start finding our identity from within. Doesn't mean we quit playing the roles or quit working, but now we realize that true meaning comes from another direction. It's everything saying the same thing. Don't try not to get too specific with these, because then the whole thing's going to fall apart. Because
we
this
talked
is a
about this,
top-level archetypal symbol.
I think we talked about this a little bit last week, Ellen, too, and it makes sense to me because, well, I'm in that Earth triangle, so I can see my own ego and disintegration as I migrate towards some of the negative aspects of the 6 when I go through those stages. And then I can see myself migrating in when I'm much more aware to the 3, where I can kind of be more spot on or do things. I can get organized and do things. So I can see things that are happening in that triangle. So it is an oscillation sort of, but there is a balance of like a disintegration and an integration. It's sort of a flow, but you're going to go back and forth to both. And so I think you're just going in different directions based on what you're going through. I think that's kind of the way I see it.
Is that the roaming free part?
That's what we were talking about, I think last time, was more that roaming. Yeah, that kind of 3-dimensionals. We roam through and we bounce off the pinball machines of the different numbers and we pull the characteristics from different things during different times and stages. I think that's kind of what it is. So you're not locked into any one thing, I don't think, Ellen, necessarily, if that's what you're concerned about.
Well, we're all born into a cage, right? By accidents of birth. Whether it's the particular time in history that we're born, the family we're born to, the sex that we're born, the conditions we're born with, the body type, the whatever natural talents or lack thereof that we have. I mean, we're all born in a set of circumstances that you could consider a cage. But those aren't the limiting factors in life. Those are just circumstances. Those are details. If we can successfully complete our spiritual journey, we can be completely free within whatever circumstances in which we're born. That's roaming free inside the cage. We all have an Enneatype, but we can be free within that Enneatype to exhibit the full balance of human potential.
So I think if you come back to this idea of the cosmic level and zooming out to the cosmic level, we're not talking about the individual types, really. We're just talking about patterns that are built into the archetypal nature of the Enneagram. I've heard other books, I'm trying to remember, I don't remember where it came from, but they talked about just going around the numbers is the path we take whenever we have a problem to solve, essentially, or like whenever. So we start off from the 9 as a place of rest. Then we move to the 1, which is perfection, where you have a vision of what you're moving towards. The 2 would be the giving part, like how does what I'm working on contribute to society in some way or add value? And then you move to the 3, where you move into action. Then the 4 is where the creative part takes over and so on and so forth. And if it might be stretching it a bit, but if you follow all the 9 types, like those are the 9 steps that we use to solve all problems, essentially. And I'm not articulating it well here, but I've heard of some really cool explanations about how we go through those circles. So we're not just talking about specific types anymore. We're talking about just deeper patterns, archetypal patterns within the Enneagram.
That's key. Yeah. It's not exactly what he said. So ultimately, people can look at the same thing and come up with different interpretations, right? Our mind automatically is going to create patterns. It's going to look for patterns. That's what our minds do. And it does that for a reason. That's survival for us. If we can see patterns, then we can predict things and we can avoid certain things and we can survive. So the mind is automatically going to do that and see patterns. Not all patterns are created equal. Someone sees a pattern in the Enneagram that someone else may not. And you don't need to necessarily listen to that. But when a pattern lasts over centuries and millennia and different cultures and time periods and all of that, then you can pay a little more attention to the patterns because they have spoken to so many people across so many bridges of time and culture and language and so on and so forth. And so those are patterns that you want to say, hey, there's something persistent about this in human experience. And so it may have something to teach me, but it's still just a pattern that someone sees. It doesn't mean it's exactly what's there. It doesn't even mean that it's what the author put there, but it's a pattern that they see. And so see if this pattern resonates for you and works for you. Maybe what Schafer is telling us here is not going to really be useful for you. And if it's not, then obviously take what you need and leave the rest. But at least if we can understand what he's trying to say and see how this overview, this cosmic view of the Enneagram might help us to understand more about the steps within our own spiritual journey, it may help us. And it may not help us initially, but it can reinforce later on down the road when you actually hit some of these stages. And then it rings in your head. It's like, oh, okay, now I get what he was trying to say. Now it makes sense. You know, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Sometimes we're getting stuff that we haven't experienced yet, or we're not quite ready to assimilate. I guess what I'm saying is don't take it too seriously. But see if it makes any kind of sense at all. And I think it'll make a little more sense when we've gone through the other triangles and then he kind of wraps it up. Hopefully it'll make more sense than it might right now.
Mm-hmm. I remember Vaughn when we had first started studying the Enneagram, who was, I think he's a skeptic. But he said it was like, he shared the story of somebody who said, you know, I can make soup out of these rocks. And people around him was like, well, you know, show me what you're talking about. So he started to boil the rocks and so on. Then he tasted it, and he was like, maybe it needs a little salt. So he added some salt to it. He tasted it again. Maybe it needs some greens or whatever you put, tasted it again. Maybe it needs a little chicken, and put it in there until you were able to have like a bowl of soup out of it. And he felt like the Enneagram had that flavor to it, where you can kind of play around with it and really add your own stuff to it. And I can see the logic in that. As a skeptic, I can see why a skeptic would view it in that way. But if we approach this not so much as again, like a scientific typing tool, it's not that by any means. It's more of a tool to help us recognize certain patterns that we might be drawn towards within our own personality structure, right? I mean, if we're starting with, let's say I'm a 9, right? And I move to a 3 when I'm not stressed, and I move to a 6 under stress. I can already identify with three points out of the 9. And then I have wings, right? So at the very least, I can find my qualities in 4 out of the 9 types, right? And that's not a great typing system, really, when you can resonate with 4 out of 9 choices, right? But it's how all of these choices, all of these points kind of dance together that gives us a flow, like a dynamic flow of how our personalities interact with, you know. So it's literally, again, if you want to type yourself and get too concrete with this whole thing is going to become, you know, like what he warned about in the beginning of the book, where it becomes you know, a way to label and diminish ourselves rather than using these tools to just recognize patterns that we might conform to. And not every 9 is going to act the same way, or so on and so forth. So, you know, it's a tool for self-awareness is the way I think Hudson and those guys would talk about it. And if you're using it for anything beyond that, you can get into trouble.
And so jumping off of what William just said is that where he's taking this now in this last chapter as a cosmic archetype, he's saying we've got these 3 triangles, 3 triangles of triangles. So the first triangle is the Earth triangle. So between 9, 3, and 6, there's a commonality. Each of those 3 types, if we went back and read through them in the individual treatment that he gave them, we're going to see that they're all basically concerned with the problems of basic embodiment. You know, what it is when you become embodied as a human being and dealing with that transition and how that impacts you. And then the next triangle, the human triangle, is going to be dealing with how then you turn with that embodiment and then work socially among the relationships, both micro and macro, that you have as a human being. So he's going to talk about how that plays into society and science and politics and social justice and all of that. And so you can see from basic embodiment as an individual now to turning and looking, how do we relate to each other and how does this play out at that level? And then the last triangle, the heaven triangle, is going to be dealing with the mystical elements. How do we basically turn toward our spirituality? So from basic embodiment to social structure to spiritual and mystical concepts, you can see how each triangle is leading us in the direction of completion as a human being. And each of the three types of those, each three triangles, have those elements in common built into their Ennea type. And so, and then within them, we have that forward and backward, clockwise and counterclockwise motion that takes us either moving toward or away from the goals of each three of those stages of human development.
Mhm.
So it's a really interesting symbolic take. You know, is it too cute by half? Is it trying to be too tied down and neat? Possibly. And you need to ultimately be the judge of that and whether it's really useful for you or not.
Mhm. But I mean, whenever we're using symbolism, right? Like when we're using like the cross, right? There are an infinite number of ways to relate to what the cross means and what all the points represents and so on and so forth. And I think it's something similar here. It's like it's more than just what's being shared on the surface. It's this deeper relating to and understanding that he's pointing towards here.
Well, let's read this last paragraph over again. We didn't finish it actually, so let's read it in its entirety because he's going to connect it to the Tao here also. So he says right in the middle of page 132, we can also approach the spiritual meaning, the central triangle of types, in another manner. The three holy ideas of the Enneagram central triangle of love, hope, and faith, the three so-called theological virtues of Christianity, stand to one another in the following way. Love is the universal acceptance of all being just as it is. Hope is a creative wave of its natural unfolding. And faith is the abiding trust that these two are in complete harmony with each other. You will find a quite similar notion embedded in the title of the most famous text of Taoism attributed to Lao Tzu. It's the Tao Te Ching. That's three words, Tao, De, and Jing. Is a book that describes how formless presence, Tao, unfolds into each individual identity, De, in such a way that both together form one harmonious relationship, Jing. So you see how he's the central tenets of Taoism, that formless presence is embodied into individual identity and then forms harmonious relationships, is the same progress that we see through the Ennea types as well, between love, hope, and faith. So he's setting up the connection between the two, really between Tao and Christianity, which I've always said, for my money, the Tao is the closest to Jesus' way and Jesus' teaching, not Christianity per se, as at least that has been received in the West, but to the teachings of Jesus that I see in other traditions. Such connection. Okay. I think that's more than enough for one night. Heads ready to explode.
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll probably be able to get through both the human triangle and the heaven triangle next week because they're shorter and we've already done a lot of the groundwork laid this evening. So hopefully we can move a little bit faster. But any final comments or questions?
So we'll all take a quiz next week. Today. Count me out.
No, this won't be on the final.
Oh, won't be until the final one.
So when there is silence like this, I always have to assume that either it was perfectly explained or you're so completely confused you can't even ask an intelligent question. So
That's me.
Oh, so that's what you're saying, Dave? I got you, man.
Yeah. So having said that, like I said, just take it lightly. If you can sit with this, or if you can read it again during the week, and bring questions next time through. As we continue to read the second two triangles, hopefully it'll get a little clearer as you see the pattern repeated in the other two triangles and see how the three fit together. If not, then maybe we'll have some good questions by then and we can kick it around a little bit more. Yeah. But remember, this is not the be all and end all of anything. Either it's useful for you or it's not. And if it's not,
I think as we talk about it too, if we can keep on applying it to our lives as we live them today, that would be helpful too. So as
life application.
Yeah, so, kind of like we did towards the end, I think that's helpful too. Because it is a little, dense when you're reading it, and then now, okay, how does this apply in sort of real life? And that's always helpful. So thank you.
We'll work on that. Okay, well, let's stop there for now, and we'll pick it up next week. And also be thinking about the Merton book, or any book that you might like to have us pick apart here, and we'll come up with a decision on that as well.
And what was the title of the Merton book?
The Merton book is Thomas Merton, Spiritual Master.
Spiritual Master.
And it is Lawrence Cunningham, editor.
Okay.
So take a look at that one. Just you can read about it on Amazon, see what you think. I mean, he's just got a ton of books that he's written, of course, but I thought maybe this would be a good one just to give us a taste of where he's coming from. It would be, even if we don't do this book, we'll have to do certain ones. Like you got to read Firewatch. So we'll read Firewatch no matter what, because it's just a wonderful little piece. It was just the epilogue to one of his other books, but it's just poetic prose. It's just a wonderful, almost an allegory. So it's a wonderful piece. So we'll definitely read that. That's in here, of course. So if we choose this book, it'll be there. But I fell in love with it first time I read it, as most people did. Okie doke. All right, Scotty, where the heck are you, man?
I'm here, right here. Father God, we're so grateful to be here and grateful to be spending time together and learning all these new things. And there's parts of it that are frustrating and parts of it that are clear as a bell, and we're enjoying the journey through all of it. So just help us to stay focused on it and learn what we can and value and put it to use in our lives, and just trust you with us all the time and leaning into you. And with all that going for us, we're going to go around and we're going to find out, because we're going to help pick it apart in each other's lives and each other's journeys, and hopefully find knowledge that we didn't have before, and give us talents and skills. And I can't find the word, Lord. It seems to be happening a little bit more often than I'm comfortable with. So I just thank you, Lord, for being here and being on our side. And we thank you for the way you love us. It's in your precious name, Lord Jesus, that we pray and we give our thanks and we say our amens.
Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Scotty. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Yeah.
everybody.
Hey, Sandy.
See you Sunday.
Hi,
See you
Sandy.
Sunday. Hey, good to see you.
Good night, good night, good night.
Good night.
Good night. Bye, guys.
Good night, buddy. Good night, Sandy. Good night, Jordana.
Good night.
Okay, dear. See you Sunday.
You too. Bye.
Bye.